Okay, for the class today, we're going to talk about um, the general aspects of the evolution of a disciple. And for many lifetimes, after a person achieves self-consciousness, and all of us here achieve self-consciousness many lifetimes in the past. For many lifetimes, we go through we periods where we just learn by trial and error. And it's a very slow process because as uh, more primitive life forms, we aren't aware of something divine. We in our progression, we began by going a lot by instinct, which is, has some supernatural properties about it, but it's instinct is kind of, we still keep, when we began our progression, we still keep a link with spirit, but it's a link that is kind of subconscious, where we don't have a conscious control of it. But we have an instinct, and primitive people are very instinctual, and this allows them to survive. But then, as they progress by trial and error, they begin to lose a lot of those instincts. And we depend pretty much on our conscious mind. And on our conscious mind, it's like we kind of lose the connection with the higher self and the spiritual realm. We seem to lose it almost completely for quite a period of lifetimes. We find that we have to pretty much rely on ourselves. And if we don't, well, then there's pain and disaster. And slowly, over a period of many lifetimes, we learn painful lessons. And then, after a period of many lifetimes, we finally reach a point where we begin to question that there has to be more than this, more than just this material world where we're just learning by trial and error, where we keep reaching all these dead ends. And so the entity begins to question and wonder if there is something higher. And then he begins to aspire to this. He begins to get indications that there is something higher. Once in a while, something will happen in his life that makes him believe in something higher, and then other things will happen that will discourage him. So he goes through this period where he kind of seeks for a lifetime or two that which is higher, and then he goes through a period where he gets discouraged because that evidence didn't pan out the way he thought, and so he oscillates for a number of lifetimes between spirit and matter. And then he finally reaches a point to where he believes in a higher power. And then he gets he makes a connection with some of the teachings of the world. And this is what the religions of the world are for, is to prepare us. That's kind of the kindergarten of spiritual teachings. And the religions of the world teach us basically that there's something beyond this life. They teach about a heaven or a hell, and what we do in this life will prepare us for the next. And there is a higher power, there is a creator. And so they we go through this time period where we begin to search, and the first thing that happens is what is called the birth of the Christ in the cave of the heart. And according to legend, the Christ himself was born in a cave. That the stable in Bethlehem was actually a cave, and the birth of the Christ in the cave is symbolic of the disciple when he has the Christ consciousness, the search for Christ, born in the cave of his own heart. And so he has this birth take place, and he begins to search, begins his quest for spirit. And he begins his quest by relying on outer authorities. He doesn't realize that the true presence of God that he needs to seek is within. And so he looks for the God without. And the God without comes in the form of some type of religion or teaching or guru that tells him what to do and what he needs to do to obtain salvation. And the first thing he has to get control of is his physical self. The physical self includes the sexual impulse, the impulse for the physical appetite, everything connected with the body and the safety of the body, the security of the body, the health of the body, is where he needs to get, where he first of all has to get control over. And this is what the religions of the world are about. They teach, almost all the religions have teachings around sex, how sex is supposed to be governed and controlled. And most of them also have teachings around what you're supposed to consume. And and also how you're supposed to treat other people, supposed to treat other people with kindness, other physical bodies out there. You're supposed to respect those people and physical bodies that you associate with. And so they all have these basic teachings around that guide the person toward control. Now, some of them go to excess. Now, let's take the Mormons, for instance. They have strict teachings about how sex is supposed to be used. So if you follow their teachings on sex, then you will have to use self-control to be able to control your sexual impulse. They teach not to drink coffee or tea or strong drink or to smoke. So you're going to have control of your physical self to be able to do that. Now, Seventh-day Adventists go farther. They teach pretty much a vegetarian diet, so they even need more control over their physical bodies. And the Catholics, for instance, have on Fridays they don't eat fish, for instance, supposedly. And
they don't eat meat.
What's they?
No, they eat fish. They don't eat meat.
Yeah, they'll just eat fish. So that's a real easy one for them, but still it takes a little bit of self-control. And the Muslims have Ramadan. I think, what, don't they fast over something for 50 days? Does anyone know how that works? Also might know.
Yeah, they fast for a full month of the moon, and but they fast in the day and they eat in the night.
Really?
Yeah.
So, how about the Jews? What do they do? Any form of fasting?
Yeah, in the Atonement Day, the Day of Atonement, and some other days too. But the Day of Atonement is the greatest fasting.
Yeah,
But all these fasts are include not drinking anything, not just not eating, but not drinking. The
yeah.
the the Muslims too. When they fast in the day, they don't drink either, and but then they eat in the evening, in the night.
Yeah, so all these religions, they all have these guidelines about sex and physical appetites. And if you're going to be a good member of just about any religion, you're going to need to exercise some self-control over the physical realm. And so they're like kindergartens for us to get us started on the path of control, a control over our reality. And once a person gets control over his appetites, so he can control them to his own satisfaction, pretty much. Because with each person's a little bit different. What's control to one person may not be control to another, depending on their belief system. But if within their belief system that they have the control of the appetites, and they've achieved the first measure of progress toward overcoming materialism. And this is associated with the first initiation. And the first initiation that the esoteric teachings give us, the person must assume control of the physical realm to a reasonable degree, so that he's pretty much happy with his own self. So what's the second stage? What's the next stage after he gets reasonable control over his physical appetites?
His emotional self, his astral self.
Right. Do you think that's harder or easier, Curtis?
No, it's definitely harder. He has to
Yeah.
control his temper, has to control all things emotional, and he kind of goes through I think the second one is baptism. He has to control and be not disturbed. He becomes imperturbable.
Yeah.
But control and not suppress.
It's not the what?
Not suppressed.
Control and not suppress.
Yeah. And emotional control is a lot easier than the theory, because the teaching around that, kind of the core teaching given by Jesus, was to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, to love your neighbor as yourself, you got to go beyond controlling your physical passions. Okay. And everybody hears that and they think, that's really wonderful. That's a great teaching. Even atheists think that's a really good teaching of Jesus. Yeah, I love your neighbor as yourself. I like that idea. But then when it comes to playing out in the real world, like look at the political world we're in right now. Do any of the Democrats and Republicans, are they loving each other as they love themselves?
They're bashing each other.
Boy, they're really at each other's throats these days. I mean, it's amazing. It's a lot worse now than it was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, the biggest problem was religions not liking each other. But now that's not nearly as much of a problem as politics is. Used to be, not long ago, you could eat lunch with somebody with a different political system and maybe even talk about it a little bit and not interfere with any friendship. But now, if you don't have the same political beliefs as your brother, you're in danger of rejection. And people people really got their dander up. So loving your neighbor as yourself is and having goodwill to all is a challenge. And one of the biggest challenges of this second major stage is the grievances, because we tend to hurt each other's feelings at the drop of a hat. And when your feelings are hurt, then the tendency is to have a grievance. And what's the best way to solve that when you have a grievance, Annie? What do you think? If somebody hurts your feelings and you have a grievance toward them, which I think you're pretty good at avoiding that, but if you do, what's the best thing to do if you have a grievance towards somebody?
I think it is to tell them in a kind way, not to crush out their eyes or something like that. Just tell them calmly that you were hurt and why.
Yeah. And is that easy to do or hard to do?
It depends. Sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah. You know, when it's the most difficult, I think, is when you have a grievance that seems kind of silly. And I've had that in my life where I feel my emotional body being upset, and I think I shouldn't be upset at this because it's just silly, you know. And so you feel kind of foolish admitting that you feel your emotional body is disturbed over something kind of silly, but your emotional body kind of has a mind of its own. Have you found that to be true, Annie?
Yeah, I mean, I've had many times, I just tell myself, but it's not worth it. It's nothing. I don't need to say anything. It's just let it go. I mean, I love this guy and everything's fine, but it doesn't go away. I've learned that through life. I have to tell them now.
But there's one major key
there's
one major key that's a solution, and that is the mind has power over the feeling. But it doesn't often assume that power, and that's where the problem comes. So let's take, for instance, have you ever fallen in love, Annie, with the wrong guy?
Oh, always.
Okay. Now, when you fall in love, your mind may think, well, this person really is problematic, but I really am attracted to him. What usually prevails when that situation occurs? Which one do you usually go with?
Well, now I mostly go with my mind, but earlier I went with my emotions. I thought that, well, this guy it seems maybe difficult sometimes, but we're all difficult, and he's really cute, and I really love him, and I can help him, and all of that.
I can
So
change
I went
him.
with it. Yeah, I can save him.
Right, you can save him. That's kind of what Artie thought about me, and she can get me straightened out.
Well, and
Well,
that's,
she was up for a weird, rude awakening.
But okay, so you have you're in a situation where you are really attracted to somebody, but your mind thinks this may not work. Yet you went with your emotions. Why did you go with your emotions when your mind has power over your emotions? What happened? What do you think, Annie?
Because as I was in love, I saw the best in the people, the persons, and I really chose not to see the bad things. So I didn't really listen too much to my mental. Well, I learned later. I did, but in the beginning I didn't.
Yeah, and this is what's interesting is the mind has the ultimate decision-making control. But what that mind does is it kind of goes to sleep on the situation. It acquiesces to the emotions. It says to the emotions, boy, you know, it would be great if you are completely satisfied, because when the emotional self is happy, everything seems great. So the mind says, okay, I'll relinquish my decision-making power and let my emotional self make the decision. And that's generally a big mistake.
Well, especially after you've acquiesced to the physical, and the physical has an interplay. You've had sex, your emotions are you just throw logic out the window.
Yeah, yeah, and the mind relinquishes its power to take control, and lets the emotional self decide, and that leads us into a lot of experiences. And this is the emotional self is associated with a feminine side, the mind associated with the male side. And so the feminine side of ourself takes us into experience, and we learn a lot by what the emotional self takes us into. And it's interesting what we do learn, and it's something that we have to go through. And as we go through these experiences, we learn the mind has to wake up and say, well, you know, I need to assume control. And I need to figure out how to let these emotions play out so they can play out in a positive way. So if you have a grievance, the mind has to take control and has to say, okay, emotional self, you got this grievance. If I let you go, if I don't take charge here, this grievance is going to hang in there forever. So I'm going to take charge. And what we need to do, we need to go confront this guy that is your problem, and solve it. Let the grievance go through communication. So the mind has to take charge. And so this is the second great stage that we have to go through, is getting the emotions under the control of the mind. And it's very, very difficult. And it happens in pieces. A person can get part of his emotions under control, but maybe another part isn't. And so over a period of a number of lifetimes, and the Tibetan talks about this, it's a very difficult struggle in getting control over emotions. It's very stressful, and the emotions have a tricky way of acting like they're under control, but then some buttons are pushed that brings back all those old feelings and in greater strength. It's a little bit like the story Jesus tells about there's a man possessed with an evil spirit, and a healer comes along and casts that evil spirit out, and that evil spirit goes and finds 7 more worse than himself. And they come back and jump in the guy, and the last state of the guy is worse than the first. And this is kind of like our emotions. Our emotions, negative emotions, is kind of symbolic of an evil spirit, so to speak. So you cast out, get rid of one negative emotion, and if it's not completely gone, if it's not completely under the control of the mind, then that negative emotion goes out in the universe, gathers strength from negativity, and comes back. And the last state is worse than the first.
Kind of like the hydra, you cut off the head of one hydra, which in the swamp, which is the emotional miasmas. You cut off one head and 7 more come back.
Yeah, yeah. An example of this might be like somebody that gets converted to religion and thinks he's saved by Jesus, and then maybe he has a death of one of his children or something like that. Or maybe his kid gets cancer and suffers, and he winds up being angry at God. And so he turns into an atheist again. And his state of mind after it's all over is a lot worse than it was earlier when he was supposedly a good Christian. So you have these things happen in life. You have setbacks. And sometimes when you have a setback, the state of your mind is, 7 times worse than it was at the beginning. And so these setbacks we have to really avoid. Same thing in relationships. You can fall in love with somebody and everything seems really wonderful. And then something happens, and maybe a betrayal. And then in the end of the relationship, the two people will loathe each other. They'll hate each other as much as hate can be manifest sometimes. And it's kind of sad when that happens. So these emotions that we have take a lot of intelligence to put them under control. And the key to this is the understanding that the mind has power of the ultimate decisions that are made. It seems like the heart does, the feeling nature. Well, it's all associated with the heart, but the heart is composed of higher feelings and lower feelings, and it's those lower feelings that give us the problem. And these lower feelings are very powerful, and it seems like they are the main decision maker to many people. When people fall in love or have a passionate impulse to go a certain direction, many people say, well, I had to do it, Well, they didn't have to do it because the mind is the ultimate decider. And this is where the disciple has to arrive at, is the understanding that the mind has the ultimate decision maker. It doesn't matter how powerful your passions are or your feelings are in one direction, your mind can take them another direction. And when you realize that, first of all, you have to realize it, and then you have to practice doing it.
Have to act on it.
Yeah. Let's pick on somebody here. Rain, you person with strong feelings. Have you ever had a feeling to go a certain direction that didn't turn out good for you, that it almost felt so strong that you had no power over it?
Oh yeah. The last time I fell in love.
Yeah, that's a great example.
What happened?
Everything said, don't do this. It's not good for you. It's not right. You should not do it. And my heart went, oh, but I really want to be in love. And this guy can be really good for me. And I can do wonderful things with him. And I got into the relationship and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. And finally, I had to just accept that I don't really care how much I love him. I'm not good with him. It's not good for me to be with him. And it doesn't really matter how much I love him. I'll continue to love him, but from a distance.
Yeah. So did your mind eventually figure things out?
Yeah. It still took me a couple of months to act on it. But yeah, throughout my lifetime, I've gotten better at acting on knowledge as opposed to, I've been really good at following my heart, but my mind, I've had to learn to listen to, and then I've had to learn to obey as well.
Here's the way I look at it. It's like for the most success in using the mind and heart, see the heart as an advisor. Like the president of the United States has a
cabinet.
A cabinet that advises him. Okay. he has a decision. He can override any member of the cabinet, but they advise him. Okay. And they enter a situation. Okay, well, shall we go to war with this country or not? Okay. And let's say everybody in the cabinet thinks, yeah, we need to go to war. They're a bunch of bad people and we need to take them out. And the president listens to that and he accepts their counsel, but maybe he might decide, no, we need to hold off and not go to war at this point. I think there's a way out.
Peace talks.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to take their advice. He listens to their advice, and sometimes he takes it, sometimes he doesn't. And this is the way the mind and the emotions need to work in harmony. The mind listens to these emotions. It's like they're almost see the mind and the emotions as like two different people with two different attitudes, but one has the power of decision. Okay, so the emotional self says, yeah, I think this person might be a good mate for the rest of our life. And the mind says, well, let's take a look. No, I don't think so. But I understand where you're coming from. I like this person too, but it's not good for us. So I'm still going to say no on this. And the emotional self is really disappointed. It's, oh man, I really wanted to get close to this person and share the rest of our lives with this person. And the mind says, well, I kind of did too, but I'm saying no on this. Okay. And this is what happens in the correct relationship. The mind sees in vision what the emotional self does not see. And putting them together, they make a good balanced life for ourselves if we use them both. But if we go entirely with emotions or entirely with mind, the life will be off balance. We don't want to be like Spock, or we don't want to be like Bones in Star Trek. They're a really good example. That doctor who they called Bones was very emotional. He always went with his emotions, and Spock always went with his mind, except on rare occasions. And both of them together was produced kind of balance that Kirk was able to kind of use them both and then kind of make a wise decision from listening to them both. And so that's what we got to do. So
Kirk represented the intuition,
yeah,
I think.
So the second major stage, it's also associated with second initiation, is controlling the emotions, putting the emotions under the control of the mind. And that's very difficult, but when it happens, the person is capable of producing a fairly stable life for himself that evades a lot of the problems that encounter general humanity. When Artie and I had our business together with some of our clients, they made such bad emotional decisions. We used to say to ourselves, we don't make these type of mistakes, yet still in our business, we have plenty of problems to handle. Can you imagine if we made decisions like some of our clients and friends, how bad our business would be? and we wondered how in the world they can even survive just making some of the decisions they made. Don't you remember us thinking that, Artie?
Yep.
Yeah. But and it is amazing that some people are able to hold together a business when they make such terrible decisions. But applying mind and emotion in all phases of our life is a important step. So next week we'll talk about the next major step is controlling the mind, mastery of the mind itself. And this involves another female aspect. What's the female aspect that's above the mind?
Intuition.
Intuition. And intuition is female. So we have to, the female gets her say in
We have to listen to the woman inside.
the female is invisible in many ways. It's like gravity is an invisible force that people didn't understand at all until Newton come along. It was just there. They didn't really hardly have even a name for it. But that's the female energy in the universe, and radiation that we get from the sun is male, and that's really easy to see. We look up in the sky and boy, that sun is really obvious that it's there. But gravity is not very obvious, and it's subtle, but you need the radiation and the gravity throughout the universe to hold everything together. You need both of them are equally important. But the female energy it's called the female is often the word associated with the female energy is a female mystique and mystery. And there is a lot of mystery behind the female energy. But anyway, that's the next great step is controlling the mind and pointing that in the right direction. And we'll talk about that next week. Any questions before we wrap it up?
I have a question.
Okay.
I know when we go to the third stage, there's one situation that's kind of a test for the third stage, but I don't think there are tests for the first and second. That's more like a gradual growth. Is that correct? One day we just tip over, but we are not facing any test, or are we?
Well, the great test for the second is releasing yourself from outer authority. Because you have that feeling that you want to obey God. And who tells you what it is that you're supposed to be obeying? It's these outer authorities, the priests, the Bible, all these things that are out there. And to switch from out there to in there is one of the really key ingredients. So that just like if you get a terminal disease and go to a doctor and he says, well, you got to do this or you're going to die. Well, boy, that's a powerful thing that affects even advanced disciples. Well, I don't want to die. I guess I better do what the doctor says, instead of maybe doing his own research and thinking, well, the doctor may or may not be correct. Let me check into it and find out and register the solution, the direction I'm going to go with my own inner soul. And that's a big part of this second stage is switching from relying on outer authorities to inner authorities. And a lot of people that think they have dispelled outer authorities, what they've really done is they've switched authorities. They'll go from like somebody that's escaped a regular religion and they think, well, I put this power of my old religion behind me and I'm moving on. And he'll often move on to accept a new guru that tells him what to do just as much as the old religion, but it's more new agey. So he thinks he's moved on, but he hasn't moved on because he's still relying on outer authority. So getting free from too much reliance on outer authority is very tricky. And this is a big step in freeing ourselves from relying on our feeling nature as our authority.
So will our soul put us in a situation saying, now let's see if you can handle this? Let's see if you follow the outer authority or your own inner authority. Will it do that?
Oh, sure. You plan before you're born, you plan your life, and your soul knows the next step. In each life, you'll have one major step that you have to learn. And sometimes you might have opportunity to learn 2 steps. That's like a bonus if you have 2 steps. But your soul will mainly plan one major step for you to take. And if you don't take it, circumstances will keep coming back and forcing you to look at that step and take it. And if you have something in your life, a problem that just keeps coming back and you can't understand, well, I thought I solved this problem, now it's here again, it's because you had a major step planned and you haven't really taken it. So you have this big problem that just keeps coming back. Now, Rain here was telling us she's had an illness that plagued her for 15 years. And she was, during that 15 years, she was wondering, well, what am I supposed to do? You know, and it just gets worse and worse. And she has solved it. So now her health has greatly improved and she's on a lot better path. And so she's apparently taken some major step in her life. Does it feel that way, Rain, that you've taken some type of a step?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so anyway, all of us, we need to figure out what that step is and take it, and figuring out if we have relinquished our, or put our emotions under control. And the people in a group like this have gone a long way to putting their emotions under control of the mind. And so we have that advantage with the quality people that come to classes like this. Okay, anything else? Okay, my friends, we will talk about the mastery of the mind in the next class and go from there. I think you'll find it interesting. In the meantime, may the Spirit be with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
you,
you.
JJ.